Anti-ship ballistic missiles launched by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in the Red Sea, signaling a significant escalation in the region. Meanwhile, Israel widening its discussions with Egypt on a peace proposal to end the war with Hamas as domestic pressure grows to secure the release of hostages. Israel rejecting Hamas's plea for the terrorist group to have a role in Gaza after the war is over. Joining me now, former CIA chief of Russia analysis, former special advisor to Vice President Cheney on Russia, and Quincy Institute Director of Grand Strategy, George Beebe. George, good morning. Want to get your reaction to everything that's happening in the Middle East right now. My biggest fear at this point watching this is Iran's role and the escalation that could come as a result of that.
Well, that's exactly right, Jackie. I think there is a significant chance that this war could escalate in ways that make it a region-wide conflict and also drag the United States directly into the fighting. That has enormous implications for the security of our country, certainly for world oil markets, for our economy. So this is a very difficult situation and one that there aren't easy solutions to. We can't simply fight our way out of this and find stability. We're going to have to make some hard choices about how to resolve this conflict without it escalating.
Meantime, Ukraine's top general calling for mobilizing more troops after nearly 2 years of war with Russia. I know this is an area of expertise for you. The New York Times reporting Russian President Vladimir Putin is quietly signaling that he is open to a ceasefire in Ukraine as long as the Kremlin could still declare some sort of victory. George, your reaction to that? Is Putin ready to back away from this as long as he can save face?
Well, I think that's probably correct, yes. Putin has been signaling for quite some time that he is open to talks. This is something that the Western media have largely ignored. But I think we're going to have to look at this with a lot more seriousness now. Ukraine has tried to pursue an offensive strategy to drive Russian forces off of all Ukrainian territory, and that has not worked out. The counteroffensive failed to drive the Russians off of Ukrainian territory. Ukraine needs a new strategy. It's going to have to go on the defensive, as it's starting to do, to prevent the Russians from making more gains in Ukraine. But it's also going to have to couple that with a diplomatic approach. So this is something that I think the United States is going to have to think seriously about pursuing.
Adam?
Thank you, Jackie. Mr. Beebe, question. Help us understand whether there is possibly some sort of off-ramp. And I say that because when hostilities first began, people were looking for an off-ramp, and then they gave up. They thought it would be a fight to the end. But if Mr. Putin is actually suggesting that he wants some sort of ceasefire, is the potential off-ramp fine? We'll stop fighting. We'll just keep the land that we've taken and go on our merry way. I mean, what would an off-ramp look like at this point?
Well, I think it's true that the Ukrainians are not going to be able to get at the negotiating table what they have not been able to take on the battlefield. So the land that the Russians have right now is very unlikely to be ceded back to the Ukrainians. But I do think that there is the possibility of a compromise between the United States and Russia over European security more generally, about Ukraine's potential membership in NATO. This has been a key objective for the Russians since well before the invasion a couple of years ago in Ukraine. If the United States and Russia can reach some sort of compromise on that issue, then the possibility of some sort of security guarantee for Ukraine, arms control, confidence-building measures, the kinds of things that can prevent continued fighting in Ukraine, that becomes a possibility. So that's something that Washington is going to have to consider very seriously.
So, George, we've touched on the Middle East. We've also talked about Russia, Ukraine. I want to get to China because Chinese President Xi Jinping says that China's, quote, complete reunification with Taiwan will surely happen. That's what he told President Biden in San Francisco just a couple of weeks ago. This is all coming, as the Wall Street Journal writes, writes that the CIA is struggling to rebuild its human espionage capabilities in China, and there's no real insight into leadership plans. So your reaction to that, because it feels to me as all of our enemies abroad are becoming more emboldened. China may potentially be one of the most threatening, and Xi Jinping is, outright coming out and saying that he will take Taiwan, but also our forces there are weakening.
Well, I think there's no question that the Chinese believe that Taiwan is a part of China, that there is one China, and that one China is in Beijing, and Taiwan is a part of that. The real question is not whether the Chinese want to see reunification, it's how they want to bring that reunification about. And the real question that the CIA has to be focusing on right now is, does Xi intend to reunify Taiwan through military means? And that is not at all clear at this point. And I think there's reason to believe that the Chinese would prefer a more peaceful reunification. That causes them far less problems than some sort of military assault on the island. And that is not an easy thing to do. Plans and intentions are a difficult intelligence problem. So our intelligence community does have a formidable challenge in trying to understand what Chinese intentions really are. And the United States faces a challenge as well, because we need to manage this situation so that it doesn't result in war, because there's a real chance that that could result in a direct clash between China and the United States. And that would be catastrophic, certainly for everyone involved.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of appetite for that here at home either, Todd.
Yeah, beyond Taiwan, beyond a potential clash between the United States and China over Taiwan, I'm worried that we don't have eyes in Beijing, CIA eyes. So how do we replenish that, and can we?
Well, I do think that there are good possibilities for the United States to have strong intelligence insights into what's going on in China and what those intentions really are. It's not an easy problem, certainly, but our intelligence community is quite capable, and I'm confident that that is a challenge that they can rise to.
George Beebe, great to have you on the program this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See you soon.